Admiral Mina Park stood frozen at the command center of Luna Station, watching her worst nightmare unfold on the massive holographic display. The stars that had looked peaceful just moments ago now swarmed with enormous alien ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest space stations. The vessels materialized from hyperspace like dark thunderclouds, blocking out entire sections of space. "How many?" Mina whispered, her voice barely audible in the suddenly quiet bridge. 237 confirmed contacts, Admiral, replied her sensor operator, his hands shaking as he worked the controls, still counting more arrivals every minute. The communication array crackled to life with static, then a deep, mechanical voice filled the bridge. The alien's English was harsh and broken, but perfectly understandable. "Humans of Earth, I am Commander Vex of the Hegemony. You have expanded your chaotic species across too many worlds. This ends today. You have exactly 72 hours to surrender your planet completely, or we will remove you from existence." Every person on the bridge held their breath. Mina felt her heart pounding as she looked around at her crew. These were experienced officers who had faced pirates, asteroid storms, and equipment failures without flinching. Now, they looked terrified. Lieutenant Jinho Kim broke the silence, his tactical display casting blue light across his worried face. "Admiral, I've analyzed their fleet composition. They outgun us 50 to 1, maybe more. Our entire defense network wouldn't last an hour against them." Mina closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the billions of people on Earth who were counting on them. Her family lived in Seoul. Her daughter was only 8 years old. "Options?" she asked quietly. "Fight and die, or surrender and hope they're merciful." Someone muttered from the back of the bridge. That's when Captain Taiho Lee stepped forward from the elevator, still wearing his dust-covered uniform from his recent diplomatic mission to Mars. Unlike everyone else, he was smiling, not a happy smile, but the kind of smile someone gets when they have a completely crazy idea. "Admiral Taiho said calmly, "What if we don't fight them?" "You mean surrender?" Mina asked, though the word tasted bitter. "No," Taiho replied, pulling out his tablet and scrolling through something. "What if we invite them to lunch instead?" The United Nations Security Council chamber had never seen chaos like this. Delegates from every nation on Earth were shouting at once, their voices echoing off the curved walls. Some were on their phones, others were arguing face to face, and a few were just staring in shock at the proposal on their screens. Secretary General Sora Choi slammed her wooden gavel repeatedly on the podium. "Order. We need order," she shouted, but her voice was nearly lost in the noise. The Russian delegate was red-faced and gesturing wildly, while the Chinese representative shook his head in disbelief. "This is complete madness." The Russian delegate finally managed to yell loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're facing annihilation, and this man wants to have a picnic." Captain Taiho Lee stood calmly at the speaker's podium, waiting for the storm to pass. His uniform was still wrinkled from his emergency flight from Luna Station, but his expression remained peaceful. When the noise finally died down, he spoke in a clear, steady voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, in every first contact protocol we've ever written, in every science fiction movie we've ever made, we always planned for two possibilities. Either the aliens would be hostile, or they would be friendly. We prepared for war, and we prepared for peace, but we never planned for hospitality." The American delegate leaned forward in his chair. "Captain Lee, are you seriously suggesting we should feed them? These aliens just threatened to destroy our entire planet." Taiho nodded slowly. "Yes, I want to show them who we are as a species. Think about it. Every human culture on Earth, no matter how different, has one thing in common. When strangers come to our door, we offer them food. When we celebrate, we share meals. When we make peace, we break bread together." The British delegate stood up. "But what if they see this as weakness? What if they see it as strength?" Taiho replied. "What? if no other species in the galaxy has ever responded to threats with kindness. Secretary General Sora looked around the room at the faces of world leaders, each one wrestling with the most important decision in human history, all in favor of Captain Lee's proposal. The vote was closer than anyone expected. Against all logic and military wisdom, it passed by just one vote. Within 3 hours, Taiho's diplomatic vessel was surrounded by trucks and cargo loaders. Korean barbecue from Seoul, fresh pasta from Italy, spicy tacos from Mexico, fragrant curry from India, foods from every corner of Earth, were being carefully loaded into temperature-controlled containers. The alien flagship's docking bay felt like stepping into a tomb. Everything was cold metal and harsh white lights that hurt human eyes. The walls stretched up so high they disappeared into shadows, and the air tasted metallic and strange. Captain Taiho could hear his own footsteps, echoing as his shuttle touched down with a soft hiss. Commander Vex stood waiting like a nightmare made real. 7 feet of scaled muscle and sharp edges, with yellow eyes that glowed in the artificial light. His reptilian face showed no emotion, and the massive weapon strapped to his side could probably cut a human in half. Behind him, a dozen alien guards held energy rifles that hummed with deadly power. Taiho stepped off the shuttle carrying a simple thermal container, trying not to think about how easily these creatures could kill him. His crew followed behind, wheeling metal carts loaded with food containers, portable heating units, and folding tables. They looked like they were setting up for a neighborhood barbecue, not meeting the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy. "Commander, Vex," Taiho called out cheerfully, his voice bouncing off the empty walls. "Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I hope you're hungry." The alien commander tilted his massive scaled head to one side, like a confused lizard. When he spoke, his voice was deep and mechanical, coming through some kind of translator device. "Human, where are your surrender documents? Where are your leaders begging for mercy?" "Right here," Taiho said with a smile, clicking open the thermal container. Immediately, the cold, sterile air filled with the rich, smoky smell of Korean bulgogi. The aroma of grilled beef, garlic, and sesame oil seemed to wrap around everyone in the docking bay. Commander Vex's nostrils flared as he caught the scent. Behind him, his guards shifted nervously, their weapons lowering slightly as they tried to figure out what they were smelling. "Would you prefer beef or chicken?" Taiho asked politely, as if he was talking to a dinner guest instead of an alien warlord. "And do you have any dietary restrictions we should know about?" The alien guards exchanged bewildered glances, their yellow eyes wide with confusion. In Commander Vex's 3,000 years of military conquest, spanning hundreds of worlds and dozens of species, absolutely no one had ever responded to invasion threats with catering services and dinner invitations. Lieutenant Hannah Yoon sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor next to a young alien officer, patiently showing him how to hold chopsticks. The alien's clawed fingers were much longer than human hands, making it awkward, but he kept trying with intense concentration. No, like this," Hannah said gently, repositioning his grip. "The bottom stick stays still, and you move the top one. Think of it like tiny grabbing arms." The young alien managed to pick up a piece of dumpling, and his eyes lit up with excitement. He made a sound that might have been laughter, though it sounded more like a purring growl. Around them, other alien soldiers had abandoned their rigid military positions and were sitting on the floor, trying different human foods and asking questions in broken English. Commander Vex stood apart from the chaos, watching his perfectly disciplined troops become completely distracted by chocolate cake. One of his sergeants was actually smiling, something Vex had never seen in decades of service, as a human explained how ice cream was made. "This is completely unprecedented," Vex muttered to his aide, his translator making his voice sound frustrated and confused. "Our military protocols have no framework for this kind of response." How are we supposed to conquer a species that responds to threats with dinner parties? His aide leaned closer and whispered urgently, "Sir, the humans are asking about our homeworld's cuisine. They want to know what foods we eat, and if we have any traditional recipes." Before Vex could respond, Captain Taiho appeared beside him, carrying a plate filled with small portions of different foods. Each dish was carefully arranged and labeled with little cards written in both English and rough alien symbols. Commander Taiho said warmly, "These small dishes represent how humans bond with each other. Every celebration, every important moment, every peace treaty in our entire history has happened around shared meals. Food isn't just fuel for us, it's how we show love." Vex stared at the plate suspiciously, then reluctantly picked up a piece of kimchi with his clawed fingers. The moment he bit down, his yellow eyes widened in shock at the explosion of spicy, sour, and complex flavors. "Your species finds strength in this?" Vex asked, genuinely curious for the first time. "We find family in this," Taiho corrected gently. The cold, sterile docking bay had transformed into something completely unexpected. Aliens who had stood at rigid attention just hours ago were now sitting on the floor in small circles with humans, sharing stories and laughing at jokes that didn't quite translate. The harsh white lights seemed warmer somehow, and the metallic air was filled with the comfortable sounds of conversation and clinking dishes. Lieutenant Hannah was deep in discussion with 3 alien officers about Earth's vertical farms, drawing diagrams on her tablet to show how humans grew food in towering buildings. "We can feed millions of people in just a few city blocks," she explained excitedly. "No soil needed, just water, nutrients, and artificial sunlight." The aliens leaned forward with genuine interest, their translator devices working overtime as they asked detailed questions about crop yields and growing seasons. One of them shared holographic images of their own homeworld, endless stretches of red sand, and dying plants under a harsh orange sun. Meanwhile, Commander Vex found himself in the strangest conversation of his long military career. He sat across from Captain Taiho, both men sharing a simple meal of rice and vegetables. Somehow, in this relaxed atmosphere, words came easier than they had in centuries. "Our homeworld wasn't always a desert," Vex said quietly, his mechanical voice carrying a weight of old pain. "We had green fields once, flowing rivers, cities full of life. But the climate changed too fast. The crops failed year after year. We watched entire cities die of starvation while our government promised help that never came." Captain Taiho set down his cup of green tea and listened without interrupting, his face showing genuine compassion. "That's when we learned the truth," Vex continued. "Every species we've encountered in the galaxy hoards their resources. They build walls and keep everything for themselves. We realized that strength meant taking what we needed before others could take from us. It was survive or starve." Taiho was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "You've been conquering out of fear, not greed. Fear is all we've known for 3,000 years, Vex admitted. "But what if," Taiho said gently, "there was enough for everyone?" Vex's expression shifted completely, for the first time in centuries. Someone was suggesting abundance instead of scarcity. The peaceful atmosphere shattered in an instant. Piercing alarms screamed through the alien ship, red warning lights flashing from every wall and ceiling. The comfortable conversations stopped mid-sentence as both humans and aliens jumped to their feet. Food forgotten. Vex's communication officer, a tall alien with dark scales, rushed into the docking bay with panic in his yellow eyes. "Commander," he shouted over the wailing sirens. "Long-range sensors have detected the swarm. They're approaching fast. Estimated arrival in 12 hours. The change in Commander Vex was immediate and terrifying. The warmth that had slowly appeared in his eyes during their meal vanished completely. replaced by the cold determination of a warrior who had fought impossible battles for centuries. His massive frame straightened, and his clawed hands instinctively moved toward his weapons. "Attention all personnel," Vex's voice boomed through the ship's communication system. "Battle stations. Prepare for swarm encounter protocols." Captain Taiho watched the transformation with growing confusion and dread. "Commander, what's the swarm?" Vex turned to face him, and for the first time, Taiho saw genuine fear in the alien's eyes. "The swarm devours entire worlds, Captain. They consume every living thing, plants, animals, entire ecosystems, until nothing remains but dead rock. We've been building this empire, conquering world after world, not for territory or resources, but to create a military force strong enough to resist them." The horrible truth hit Taiho like a physical blow. Around the docking bay human crew, members stood frozen as they realized what this meant. "You weren't conquering for power," Taiho said slowly. "You were trying to save the galaxy. Every species we approached with alliance requests chose to fight us instead of listening," Vex said bitterly. "They saw our ships and immediately attacked. Force became the only language that worked. We had to conquer them to save them." He looked around at the shared meals scattered across the floor, at humans and aliens who had been laughing together moments before. Until now, this is the first time any species has chosen to talk instead of shoot. The feast had become something far more important than anyone realized. It was the first real diplomatic success in the hegemony's desperate 3,000-year war for galactic survival. Within minutes of the alarm, both ships transformed into centers of frantic activity. Admiral Mina Park's shuttle docked with Earth's fastest scientists and engineers aboard, while Commander Vex's massive warship became a buzzing hive of military planning. The casual atmosphere of the shared meal was replaced by the urgent energy of people preparing for war. The main conference room on Vex's flagship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Holographic displays showed star maps stretching across the entire galaxy, with red zones marking worlds that had been consumed by the swarm. The scale was breathtaking and terrifying. Hundreds of civilizations simply wiped from existence. "The swarm moves like a plague across space," Commander Vex explained, his clawed finger tracing their path of destruction on the display. "They consume all biomass, every plant, every animal, every living microorganism. When they finish with a world, nothing remains but dead rock and empty oceans." Dr. Junho Park, Earth's leading agricultural engineer, studied the tactical displays with the focused intensity of a man trying to solve an impossible puzzle. His weathered hands moved across the holographic controls, zooming in on devastated worlds and analyzing consumption patterns. "Commander," Dr. Park said slowly, "what if we could feed your people without conquering anyone? Our vertical farms can produce massive amounts of food in tiny spaces. We've developed synthetic proteins that taste like real meat, algae, cultivation, systems that work in space, closed-loop farming that recycles everything." He pulled up images from Earth, showing towering green buildings where millions of tons of food grew in perfectly controlled environments. "We could end your resource scarcity completely." Vex's military advisor leaned forward and whispered urgently in their harsh alien language, his tone clearly skeptical. "My officers say this is impossible," Vex translated, though his voice carried a hint of hope. "In 3,000 years of galactic travel, we've never encountered a species that shares resources freely with strangers." "Humans do," Captain Taiho said simply, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We've been doing it for millennia. It's how we survived ice ages, famines, and wars. When one group had extra food, they shared it. When another group had better tools, they taught everyone how to make them. The alliance was forged, not with formal treaties, but with an exchange of farming techniques and defensive strategies that would change the galaxy forever." The combined human-alien fleet stretched across space like a constellation of hope and desperation. Hundreds of ships from two different worlds worked together, for the first time in galactic history, preparing for a battle that would decide the fate of countless civilizations. But while the aliens focused on weapons and battle formations, humans were busy doing what they did best, making sure everyone was fed, supplied, and connected. Lieutenant Hannah Yoon had transformed from a simple, diplomatic officer into the most important person in the fleet. Her small human shuttle zipped between massive alien warships like a busy bee, coordinating supply runs with an efficiency that left the hegemony's rigid military commanders speechless. She had taken Earth's food distribution networks the same, systems that delivered fresh groceries to millions of homes every day, and adapted them to supply ammunition, fuel, and spare parts across hundreds of ships. "How does she do it?" asked one of X's generals, watching Hannah's shuttle dock with perfect precision for the 15th time that day. "Humans don't just fight wars," Admiral Mina explained. "We organize them. Every successful military campaign in our history succeeded because someone made sure the soldiers had food in their bellies and bullets in their guns." As the swarm's approach grew closer, both species prepared for what might be their final night alive. Instead of spending it in separate ships, planning battle strategies in isolation, they chose to share one last meal together. The main hangar bay of X's flagship had been converted into an enormous dining hall. Tables made from cargo containers were covered with simple white sheets, and the harsh military lighting had been dimmed to something warmer and more welcoming. Commander Vex sat beside Captain Taiho, both of them eating a simple meal of earth rice mixed with alien vegetables that tasted like a cross between carrots and cinnamon. Around them, hundreds of humans and aliens shared food, stories, and nervous laughter. "If we survive this battle," Vex said quietly, "the hegemony will never conquer another world again." "When we survive this," Taiho corrected with gentle confidence, "you won't need to." Across the fleet, both species shared their hopes for a future where no one would ever go hungry again. The Battle of the Outer Rim lasted 18 brutal hours that felt like 18 years. The swarm came in waves of black, insect-like ships that moved like a living nightmare across the stars. They had consumed hundreds of worlds with the same terrifying efficiency, but this time they faced something completely new: human adaptability, combined with alien military discipline, created a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. When the swarm's formations shifted, human commanders adapted their tactics instantly. When human ships ran low on ammunition, alien vessels shared their weapons. Lieutenant Hannah's supply network kept every ship fighting at full strength, while Commander Vex's strategic experience guided the overall battle plan. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the swarm retreated. Their black ships limped away into deep space, leaving behind the scattered wreckage of their defeat. Across the combined fleet, humans and aliens cheered together, their voices mixing in a celebration that echoed through space. 3 weeks later, Luna Station hosted the most important ceremony in human history. Commander Vex stood before assembled delegates from dozens of worlds, his massive frame somehow looking smaller and more peaceful than before. Secretary General Sora Choi watched with tears in her eyes as he signed the document that would change everything. "I hereby formally dissolve the hegemony's conquest protocols," Vex announced, his translated voice carrying across the crowded chamber. "Earth will become our new diplomatic center, but more than that, it will be the place where former enemies learn to become family." The signing of the Galactic Mutual Aid Compact marked the birth of the first interstellar treaty based on sharing, rather than taking, instead of ending with formal handshakes and political speeches. The ceremony concluded in the most human way possible. In Luna Station's massive observation deck, beings from a dozen different worlds sat together learning to make dumplings. Scaled hands worked alongside human fingers, folding dough and sharing laughter as they looked out at the stars. They would now explore as friends rather than conquerors. Humanity had won the greatest victory in galactic history, not with superior firepower or advanced technology, but with the simple revolutionary idea that there was always room for one more at the table.